Okay, so we have a ton of people writing us about how hard communication is in relationships, and I'm all just like I don't even know what to say to that, you know? So, oh.
So today, let's focus on 3 of the major misconceptions, which some of them are just excuses, that usually come into play when we talk about lack of communication in relationships.
1, that men are just notoriously bad communicators, but it's not their fault. I mean, they're just big dumb men.
2, the idea that all women need to communicate every moment of their day, otherwise they'll like figuratively explode. And 3, that talking is communicating. I mean, sometimes it is, but definitely not always.
And since today is all about communication, we would love to hear from you guys down in the comments section below. And don't worry, if you don't know what to say, you can check out our pinned comment for the new comment section question of the day and let us know your thoughts.
So first thing on the list, why do all men really suck at communicating?
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm gonna throw something out there, see if it sticks. Let me know what you think below. All men don't suck at communicating. And the ones that do, they don't suck at it just because they're men. That's a terrible excuse that doesn't even begin to scratch at the surface of why they don't want to communicate. I just talked about this a tiny bit in a recent video called What Men Really Want, Who Cares? You can check that video out right there. The thing is, I don't believe that there are a ton of men in the world who just don't want to communicate, but I do believe there are a ton of men in the world who have been told that men don't want to communicate. A lot of times, men that are bad communicators are just following social norms or things they've seen in TV and movies, even just things they've seen patterned in their families. It's just tradition, but it's not necessarily built on what's in here or what's in here. And while I definitely agree that a society that has such easy access to voicing every single opinion all the time could definitely use a little more thoughtful communication, the thing that we're talking about here is men that have something to say and just don't say it. And if you are in a relationship with someone, man, woman, child, whatever, who's a bad communicator, you have like a million options on how to deal with it. But here are my 3 favorites. You have to be willing to wait and listen. If you really want to be able to communicate with someone, you have to be willing to be at least somewhat on their timeline. Not communicating with the people that you love is a lot of times born out of fear of judgment, fear of a lack of understanding from the person that you're talking to. It is really hard to share things, even with people you love, especially with people you love. So if you really want to know what's going on in somebody's brain, you might have to wait a second. That leads me directly to another option, which is start small. You know, maybe you just want to know the inner workings of their most magical dreamlands and all the things that they've never told anyone and all their hopes and desires, and you just want to know everything and like, why won't you talk to me about it? But maybe also you could just start out with something a little smaller. Maybe talk about the details of their day or your day or something that you read or something that happened to you that day that you want to share with them. If they have no interest in even sharing those little things, there may be a bigger conversation you need to have, even if it's just with yourself. Lastly, you can go the old Angelina jackhammer route, popularized in our first video on this channel, Fighting. You can check that video out right here. But be warned, when you find yourself choosing to go that route, doesn't matter. You want to prep yourself as best you can for whatever might come roaring out of that emotional Pandora's box that you just opened. If you're asking for real communication, you have to mean it. In for a penny, in for a pound.
Oh my God. So listen. We all know that girls love to talk, and that's like all we do, and there's like never a time where we don't want to be talking. And you know, when I get home from work, I make Colt listen to every single thing that happened in my day because I really need to get it off my chest, except I don't. Like, I love to talk and communicate, obviously. But when I get home, I need that quiet time. I don't want to come home and talk about every single thing that happened that day. My brain is already a mush thinking of a million things that happened that day. I don't want to like recap everything. We're super lucky because we spend a ton of time together, so we usually know what's going on in each other's days. So we don't have to like catch up on all of those tiny little things, but it's awesome because it leaves us open to talk about like some really big, awesome life stuff, you know? Like we don't even mean to, but I think it's because we really respect each other's opinions. We're sort of like a sounding board for each other's ideas about love, life, the world, politics, I don't know, everything. And so when we talk, we're talking about real stuff. I think that's why we're so happy. We don't just talk, you know? We really communicate.
Communicate doesn't just mean talk. I know that probably hits your eyes and your ears a little funny, but just give me a second, let me explain. Yes, obviously, talking is a way of communicating, but you can talk a whole lot and communicate very little.
Communication is about something more than just talking. And to be fair, you don't need words to really communicate at all.
Ayo.
Okay. Touche. If you put your ego aside and you really pay attention with like clear eyes, you can see so much of what someone is trying to communicate even without talking.
This is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned from life and especially from this relationship. Don't just listen to words. Don't just watch what they say. Watch what they and you do.
What?
Okay, I know, no, that sounded super cryptic,
Super
especially with
weird,
the ominous and droning music underneath, and going for like a Christopher Nolan-y vibe. But it's really not that dramatic. It's just life. I was actually talking about early on in our relationship and all of the things that I said, but I never did. This is the last time I'll say it in this video, but I just talked about this in another video. You can check it out right here. I communicated a lot in the early days of our relationship, and I'm not proud to say that a lot of what I communicated was not with my words, but with things that I would say and then didn't do. Like I talked a big game, but I didn't follow through on a lot of that talk.
And that's something we really worked on for each other. We were actually both doing that, like in our own ways. I wasn't saying exactly what I was feeling because I thought he could see it, and you weren't doing everything you were saying, but I wasn't telling you how much it was hurting me. So we get it. Like, we were not always very good at communicating. No. We both enjoy really long talks till like all hours of the night, but we still have a lot to learn, and I hope we always do.
Well, that's the really big thing about communication, is that when you get better, you can just see how much further you have to go. The more you know. Ba, 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 ba. Every new step that you take forward gets you closer to this goal that doesn't really exist. It really is about the journey, and I know that sounds cliche. The destination is the journey.
Okay, Moira.
But it's true. You don't ever get to some end point where happiness is achieved and it's all over and there's nothing left to do. You're fine now. Good, you made it. Happily ever after. And I think people not understanding that is why a lot of people's happy ever after is in their past.
So whether you're in a relationship or you're single, whatever, just let yourself start communicating, you know? Like, surround yourself with people that are talking about actual things and not just that like small talk all the time.
Smart talk. Don't do this smart talk all the time. Okay?
What was that voice?
I loved it.
That was a mix of the Boston and New York, and it just
and
all
Family
mushed.
Guy. It was a little bit of Peter.
That was a little
Peter.
weird.
Let yourself get into real conversations that take things that you've thought in your mind for years and changes them in an instant. Be open to change. I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people don't like conversation, because they don't want to change.
Changing is uncomfortable. Growing is uncomfortable.
But let yourself grow and change, and that doesn't come from talking. That comes from communicating. Because communicating is a very big part of love. Like Elmo.